Next one will be on learning. There was a Dr. Navaratna's presentation on digital learning and the strategy for Sri Lanka. And this is also on the same lines. Virtual learning and professional education, global perspective. So what's happening around the world? Now, to make this presentation, we have currently someone who is a regional vice president for Asia Pacific Management Accounting of the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. The association combines the strengths of the American Institution of CPAs, Certified Accountants, and the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. This gentleman, our next speaker happens to be a gentleman, and gentleman takes the lead of the association's vision, strategy, and growth for the Asia Pacific region, covering Southeast Asia, Australia, India, and some other countries. Our presenter is today Mr. Venkkat Ramanan. He's a chartered global management accountant by profession and fellow member of CIMA. Besides receiving an executive education from INSEAD, which is a top-notch university in the world, he's also a master neuro-linguistic programming certified performance coach. I'll repeat that again, neuro-linguistic programming certified performance coach. I would like to hear from Mr. Ramanan during his presentation how NLP certification has helped him too. That's a personal question to him. Mr. Ramanan, over to you.
Thank you, Arjuna. Let me start off by sharing my slides, and thank you for that introduction, and hope all of you can hear me well. So
yes, we can.
I will take up that question later, Arjuna. Thank you for that. So what was asked of me is to look at the perspectives of virtual learning in a professional education from a global perspective environment, and specifically taking into account COVID-19 and how things are going to change in the future. So let me address on those. There's a perspective on the Great Reset. If you have had a look at it, I would really implore you to focus on this as well. The World Economic Forum is leading this initiative. And the expectation and the objective of this initiative is to look at the crisis, to look at political, economic, and social disruptions that are taking place caused by this thing that's fundamentally changing everything that we know. And from a decision-making perspective, to look at what impacts would it have on us on the short, the medium, and the long term. And why I'm putting this out here is, this is, as if somebody once said, every crisis presents an opportunity, and this opportunity for us is to rethink about everything that we do. And the reset around this is important, specifically in a world that we live in, which is continuous professional learning. And as professionals, we have to focus on that importantly. Klaus Schwartz said, the founder and chief executive and executive chairman of World Economic Forum, he said, it's not the biggest fish that will always swallow the smallest fish, but it's the fastest fish that's going to swallow the smallest fish. This is so true in an environment where we are looking at organizations who are struggling with business resilience at the moment. We know of big companies who are struggling, not being able to manage situations and provide opportunities for their customers as well as remodel. But it has also got to do with agility and speed and how an organization allows individuals to bring in innovation and quickly address those innovations to make it work for them. And this, in a COVID and a post-COVID world we're going to live in, is far more important than what we know. Now let's look at the external forces that are driving change. And these are external forces that have been pretty much aware and built in for our lives for a long time. So we have geopolitics and globalization, where regulatory complexity and geopolitics was the trade war that was between US and China. For a long time, it dominated for nearly about 3 years. And then we had a situation around regulations and how regulations would change the way we are looking at things. We are looking at technology and cyber issues and financial challenges and workforce challenges. Now, with one single swipe, COVID is changing everything. Now, geopolitics and globalization, when you talk about globalization, you would have heard certain speakers talking about it earlier. We're looking at nationalization first and regionalization second, rather than globalization. And as the earlier speaker was talking about supply chain related issues, this is more relevant now to protect not only in terms of COVID related issues, but to protect local produce, employment, everything. We will see this. We're talking about regulatory complexity, and this has pushed governments to rethink about how regulations will have to be addressed in a different perspective. It is just not only regulations in the way we are looking at how we work, social distancing measures and compliance around things. And I heard in Sri Lanka recently, if you don't wear a face mask, you're going to be asked for 2 weeks to be mandatory quarantined at home. But also regulations that are going to be adopted new and pushed fast, like, for example, digital taxation, as companies move on to a digital environment to understand further. So we are going to have a far more greater impact on regulatory complexity, and technology, financial challenges are always going to be there. It's an opportunity. We'll come back to that. And let me address one more thing that's important here: workforce changes. Workforce changes is where we always spoke about the 5 generations working side by side. We had the traditionalists, boomers, Gen X, millennial, and the Gen Z, the 2020. And we are also talking about, because we run out of alphabets, we're looking at alphas, generation alphas that are to come as well. And here's the critical thing. COVID-19, within 3 months, has standardized and customized all their behaviors in more parallels than one. Grandparents who are or parents who are used to selling produce, who would do it face-to-face, are not doing it through WhatsApp, doing WhatsApp sales. They're taking orders and supplying it. And people who were not on digital basis before are far greater digitally involved. My mother, who's living in Colombo, is making digital orders for her supplies. If I asked her to do it 4 months ago, she would still want to go to the market, buy produce, not interested anymore, which you all know as you're addressing this as well. And why does it affect us? If you look at the Gen Z learning pattern, most Gen Zs are not classroom-based. As traditionalists, we were taught to be in an informational world. We were told what to do. Baby boomers had transformational learning. Generation X focused on self-directed learning, but the Generation Z didn't want any of this. They wanted to be there. They wanted experiential. They wanted to listen only at 12% of their lecture or when they were interviewed. But majority of them wanted experiential, working, learning, working. And the impact of COVID is it shifted quite a lot of generations to think the same rather than just the Gen Z. Pre-COVID world, we looked at the world of education and continuous development. Universities needed a remodeling for a long time, and modular education was being thought of for a long time as well. College degrees in Australia and US were looking at disaggregating. That means looking at a 4-year degree and saying, right, can we do 1 year, let them go work 1 year, come back, and let's build up on that. And World Economic Forum said by 2022, everyone needed to have 101 days of learning. And this is just not pure learning. This is learning, unlearning, relearning. And ladies and gentlemen, this is before COVID. COVID has had a staggering impact. 1.38 billion students are affected worldwide. And the problem with this is some did not have education, no examination, no classrooms. Some had over-education. They were put into children who are as young as 8, 9 years old, were put into Zoom classes without understanding the impact of mind as well as psychology for about 6 hours. Some were sent homework by schools asking people to do it and submit it by the end of the day. That actually caused more stress for the parents than for the kids. But just imagine the inconsistent delivery of education in a world that has affected so many of them. Also, COVID now has created more debate, and I am focusing slightly more on university education. Let me touch on professional education slightly because they're interlinked. They're, in the world that we now live now is not any different, because there is a debate around what should education look like. For us professionals, we always focused on lifelong education from a perspective of, well, we achieve something, we attain something, and then we look at continuous professional development. The challenge around the discussion is, why does continuous professional development or learning need to start from the perspective of somebody completing something? Why can it not start from a child who's 12 years old and remodel it till the day they decide that's enough for them? So COVID is pushing the agenda. And in Australia, they're looking at micro-credentials, by the way, not a very 2-year, 3-year program of learning or skills development as a permanent fixture, because they feel employment will keep changing rapidly because of this. That's a debate, and it's a good debate to be part of. Now, some perspectives were, well, we got to think about education because we not looked at technology. There was no technology that focused on education. Just look at that on the left. there are more than 90 edtech companies that have been writing the future of education even before COVID started. The problem was there was no acceptance to it to a great deal. And it's no different to us. I'm a SEMA member, and to some SEMA members, it was also a perspective of, look, I have what I have, and that's good for me. And if you look at perspectives like markets like Sri Lanka, when you talk about digital education, they still felt to a great extent, no, we're happy with face-to-face engagement, and that's culture. And technology is going to ramp this up further, because you look at blockchain and things around that, it's going to be studying the requirement for employment and employability and bringing edtech faster than than you can imagine. World Economic Forum also addressed something. There are 5 COVID-19 changes that are happening right now. We are more consistently in touch with each other than we have ever been. My work hours are 11 to 12 hours now, and I have never been this much in touch with my team than I have. You speak to them, they will let you know. I'm in touch with them weekly, and I have a team from Dubai down the way to New Zealand, from Asia Pacific perspective. We are keeping in touch more. Also, it has also created a situation with unemployment and things around that. People have far more anxiety in terms of what they don't know. And they're also learning new ways to do things, which is to be at home and manage home, work, and family, and all the other requirements. As much as companies are looking at resilience, they're also looking at cost as an important perspective. Many employers we speak to, when they talk specifically about the finance function, they keep saying we are looking at combining 2 roles into one. We want to have agility in terms of our team members in finance being able to take on the critical things, but they're also saying, we need to have a perspective in terms of their skills, and what skills, more to do with soft skills and learning business partnering more than anything that you know. And if you look at one of the greatest concerns that people see right now is whether there'll be another outbreak, whether there'll be a variant coming from COVID-19, whether there'll be further unknowns which will complicate. We are talking about a vaccine at the moment. Yeah, that vaccine is for COVID-19. What are the further complications and outbreaks that might happen? We are not. And one of the key things that coming from speed, agility. Any member who's a professional or non-professional, if they can learn new skills with speed and agility, they can bring it to the organization. As companies are looking through resilience now, they're looking at remodeling their business. They need people who can bring that skills to make it work. And that has become a far important trait. Growth of virtual learning and distance learning has increased exponentially. Nearly 30% of all higher education in the US right now are taking at least one distance learning course. And this is US, whose system was purely built on recognition, reputation, going to college, going to have physical presence. And 4 factors were identified as being important. Flexibility, people can choose what they want. It can be customized to the way they want, and there's a wide range. It's accessible. You can stay in one country, which it's important, and it's cost effective, because my daughter goes to school right now, and the way the school is being run, I'm questioning the value what I'm paying for. Is it worth to pay that much and to do homeworks and send it back to them, or am I to look at other sources of learning? So COVID has changed the perspective of mindset in terms of people. They're embracing this digital and virtual learning much. And we don't only see it just in some parts. Hong Kong is a case study itself. They are learning more, they have developed more interactive apps for learning from home. In China, 120 million, just take that number. You know Sri Lanka's population and do a multiplier based on what China's population is. Learning materials were bought through live classrooms and streaming, and they have cloud-based solutions. Nigeria, where we always felt Africa, well, they integrated digital banking in a different way, took speed on it. But they're looking at technology because they can make that rapid changes. They're using Google Classrooms. And with 5G to come, learning anywhere is going to be a far more prominent feature forward. And reskilling is something that's important. If any one of you seated in that room think the skills I have are going to enable me to take things forward, and I just need to go on a course of maybe a digital skill and learn blockchain and that'll help me, let me shake you up and say, that's not going to be it. There has to be much more. In the World Economic Forum, Education 4.0, other than the skills that were spoken about, the important ones they're focusing on are 2 critical ones, that is interpersonal skills, as well as lifelong and student-driven approach in terms of how we manage things. So learning, ladies and gentlemen, needs to be looked at a different light. Let me bring to a case study in a global approach in terms of how virtual learning can be adopted. And let me share a SEMA case study, the things that we did. In 2015, we went completely digital in terms of examination. All 16 subjects of our examination process was moved into a digital platform. You got to do it on an exam center, typing out your answers. And I used to go do my exam in Sri Lanka when I did my SEMA 25 years ago. I used to write 3-hour answers and then put my hand in a freezer before I went for my 3-hour exam afterwards. It's now digital. In 2019, we introduced our competency framework, put digital skills embedded into it. So exams went digital, our skills were more focused on digital. And when COVID happened, we looked at every university or every profession that was either stopping exams or holding back exams till next year or November. We realized that's not the right thing to do. What we wanted to do was we wanted to ensure our students are capable of continuing their learning no matter what. So we brought in remote testing. That means a person can do the test, but can do it from home rather than going to a center. And what we did in the whole process is we also worked with tuition providers globally, and we managed to do virtual classes. So no more, you can join a program, you can attain your digital skills, you can go to a classroom, which is virtual and digital, and any subject is being taught by that. Some of the tuition providers in Sri Lanka do have learning management systems immediately implemented. And therefore now we managed to test you. You don't need to go to a test environment. With technology and proper proctoring for ethics and integrity purposes, we were delivered home. And the future, we are looking at a new based education in terms of reimagining. It is not only the way we are looking at exams or the competency framework, but we are also looking at how learning needs to be more virtual. We are now working on that in terms of integrating an approach. Students may not necessarily in the future need to be in a classroom, where our approach is working with partners to learn anywhere, anytime in a digital education space. But that's not it. We are looking at how we need to remodel to our members. We have brought in to our members something called a digital mindset pack, which was introduced actually last year, enhanced this year, and even more next year, where it's given free with their annual subscriptions. The digital mindset pack consistently focuses on new skills that a member needs to know. I qualified about 20 years ago, and the skills that I had 20 years ago are far become irrelevant long time ago. How do I keep my mindset going up? So the digital mindset pack that we gave our members on a digital platform was to enable that further. Virtual education. In our partner in the association, AICPA, as you know, the association is a combined voice of SEMA and AICPA, used to run this Engage conference, which was a massive conference that used to take place in Las Vegas. Nearly about 8,000 people turn up face-to-face, and 20,000 people through other bases on digital and other platforms do turn up. And we used to have it as a physical event, as I mentioned, in Las Vegas. When COVID took place, the question that we asked ourselves is, are we to cancel the conference, or what are we to do? The organization made a decision, nope, it goes completely virtual, and the whole thing was done virtually itself. And those who know Shark Tank and you follow it, Damon Johnson, or Damon John, as you know, came and presented, is presenting on a virtual platform itself. And we were hesitant to find out, like today's crowd on a Sunday, you have turned so many people up to listen to this session and other sessions. The sessions are being run out as we speak because more people are engaged in that. So virtual education and professional development does not need to be in a classroom environment. And looking closer to what we did, what you find here is just, this data is 1 month old, and my apologies for that. We have run nearly 30 virtual programs in 3 months for our members in Asia Pacific. And these virtual programs were delivered 100% on Zoom, were enabled through participants of speakers from all over Asia Pacific. And like on a Sunday, I'm turning up for this conference, we didn't have a 5-day week to do this. We did it within a 7-day week, and we had average. This is what's important. When you do a CPD, we'll get 30 to 40 people turning up. We had average nearly 200 to 250 turning up for each of these events. Interestingly, like in today's conference I'm presenting, I don't need to travel, I don't need to come, I don't need to be physically present. We had more speakers who wanted to do it, more audience who were willing to listen into. Wrapping up, the future is learning is there. Technology will enable it. Virtual learning needs to enable it. The question of professionals need to be thought through carefully. We are with a profession like SEMA because there's ethics, integrity, and the focus of the profession to always keep looking at upskilling and keeping us relevant. But the world, the way it's shaken up, the role of professional needs to be thought through in a different perspective. No more can we hold our profession to say that's enough in keeping us relevant. We need to always consistently upskill, whether it's a virtual environment, digital environment, we need to accelerate our learning and we need to learn new ways of doing things. Before I wrap up, the key learnings for us in moving to virtual from a global perspective, all I can tell you is be agile. You don't put technology first. I've seen many people talk about technology will enable things. Yes, technology will enable things, but it's people who make the technology work. In an environment in which we are, trust your staff, your teams, in terms of the innovative ideas, and then use the technology. If you think technology you buy and you put it to enable it, that doesn't solve things. People understand customers, customers understand people. Trust what your people will say, use the right technology. Perfection is the arch enemy of progress, as we say. When we wanted to bring up exams delivered at home, lots of questions were asked internally. Cybersecurity, are we clear? People, can they manage? Technology with the Wi-Fi connection at home, can we make it a perfect environment if we go through? Organization took a decision saying, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Let's do it. Let's learn as we do it, but let's make sure the integrity of the exams is taken care of. That's where the biggest investments were made on. So the learning that I will share with you is, you're not going to live in a perfect environment. Perfection is the arch enemy of progress. Look at opportunities in something that comes up, take it forward and move forward. It's important, and run it. Finally, some people make things happen, some people watch things happen, and some people ask, what in the world happened? You got to figure out in your environment in which you learn in. Either if you want to, as a profession, bring virtual learning home, or if you want to look at reskilling, you got to ask yourself the question, in which segment are you in? Are you going to be the person who watches things happen? Or are you going to are you going to be the person who makes things happen? Or are you going to ask, what in the world just happened? Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Venkkat. Let me ask you the first question. Bottom line is, it's a series of questions that have been asked and they are the same question. When you go to digital learning, especially in Asia and countries like Africa and etc., because you are giving the global perspective, will there be a digital divide? Because this is not simple as, if you take Sri Lanka, it's not 80% of the people live in villages. So will it be something like the digital divide will occur in these communities?
I think there are those who are willing, and then there are also are non-willing more than a digital divide. I mean, you look at Africa, for example, that's where mobile banking took place in a faster process than anywhere else. If you look at Africa, when things were done, you couldn't have a bank branch or an ATM machine in a remote African village. So in Africa, that's where one of the biggest introductions of mobile banking took place, where you use your mobile app, and your SMS to do mobile banking. So let me address that. Those who are willing will find opportunities in continuous learning no matter what, as we are discovering. Some of our members have been given laptops, for example, by organization. And what we do find out is, yes, they are doing their work, but they are sharing their laptop with their daughter or son so that they can follow up with their learning and make sure that they're continuing their journey in terms of their education as well as managing work. So I don't buy into the digital divide, but what I buy into the mindset of what you want to do. Governments will soon, as a part of the perspective I spoke to you in terms of regulations, also be look at in terms of how do you further embrace the digital aspect with its civilians and its population. Will they be looking at further digitally enhancing? They will look at reprioritization of their expenditure as most economies are put into rigor. I do not believe there will be a digital divide. I believe the system, the society, and that's what I shared with you on the first slide with the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset, more institutions will come to enable it to make it work. Otherwise, there won't be a world forward. You're on mute, Arjun.
One quick question. Exams. One of the key questions people ask is, how do you do digital exam? Will there be cheating, etc.? A quick answer, please.
No, it won't, because we had proctoring. We had proctors who are managing the exam, so they virtually can see what you're doing. We use technology such as AI to look at and monitor how in an examination platform, whether a person is cheating or someone else is doing. Even identification, you need to have identification with a photograph to see whether it's the right person. So we work with Pearson VUE, who's an online digital platform provider for digital education, and another organization who focused on delivering home proctored exams. And we brought it. So we use the experts across rather than ourselves. Outsource where it's relevant. Don't try to figure it out all on your own.
Right. So a lot of investment and a lot of learning and relearning and unlearning to be done. One quick question, one last one. Do you think in places like Sri Lanka and Asian countries, the deliverer, that is a teacher, are they digitally savvy to do this job? Because now, for example, you are a seasoned presenter. You are on the screen and you know how to do this right. But do our teachers ready for this? I mean, are they ready, or should they be trained? This was a question that was asked from Dr. Navaratna as well. In the moment.
To your question, it's a very pertinent question. The roles have to change. Teachers shouldn't teach anymore. We need to look at technology to deliver the teaching. What we need is teachers. They have immense value, knowledge. They have insights that many don't because of continuous teaching, and they understand students. They need to move from teachers to becoming mentors and mentoring students. Rather than investing 3 hours in a day teaching one component, they need to, the whole society needs to invest in technology to deliver the teaching, which is being done, can be done, is being looked at being done by edtech providers. If you look at Khan Academy, for example, the role of teachers is to become mentors. They speak to students and says, what did you learn? What about what you have learned has changed? So my acknowledgement request is, teachers are valuable. They have a critical role to play. Make them to become mentors. Let technology enable the teaching part. The teacher shouldn't waste their time on that.
Mr. Ramanan, that's a great stop. Great punchline, tagline, I might say. Teachers to become mentors and the teaching to be done through technology. Very well said. Thank you very much for today's presentation, which I appreciated particularly your setup. Very pleasing to me after seeing so many different things. Yours is a very pleasing one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ajay.